A bit about me, just to begin with, a very small piece. I started my career on a service desk, supporting and training schools in their use of their MIS, and that was for a local authority about 16 years ago now, before moving to SBS just before lockdown. And this is where I stepped into the project management of moving schools predominantly to cloud-based MISs. I'm now lucky enough to manage our team here and oversee all the migrations that we undertake each year. So today I'm going to share with you my knowledge and tips, because as we all say, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I think Laura's stolen my thunder there and just said, please do pop any questions into the chat box, or at the end that you might like to recap on. So who are we? So we're School Business Services. We were formed in 2007, and we have got expert education specific teams across budgeting, finance, accountancy, HR, payroll, ICT, and lastly but not least, MIS. We joined our parent company, the Supporting Education Group, in 2020, and we are growing in not just team size, but the volume of schools we support too. That's enough about us though. Let's talk about moving your MIS. Many of you will be here this morning due to the latest rulings by the Competition and Markets Authority. So the CMA has now closed its investigation into ESS's move from their 1-year annual entitlement agreements to 3-year agreements. They've closed this because ESS have offered a further break clause called the commitments. Any eligible customers that were looking to move their MIS last year but did not have sufficient time can apply to an independent adjudicator by 5 p.m. by the 10th of February. So you have just under a month to apply. You'll be told whether you're successful by the 31st of March. And if you are successful, you can exit your agreement with ESS by the 31st of March next year. Just remembering you'll have to give notice between the 1st of January 2024 and the 29th of February 2024. So that does give you a whopping 12 months to find, plan and begin your move to a new MIS. So you are here on the left-hand side right now, and I believe migrating to a new MIS has 3 core components. So firstly, the vision. Why do you want to change software? What is it that you want to gain from the new system? And where do you see your school in a year's time or 2 years' time or even 5 years' time? What do you want to be different? Then you choose the software. There's so many out there now. So do you go for the one you think is most popular, the one that colleagues have experience of, or maybe the cheapest? Well, I believe it's all of them. Get as many different demos as you are happy with and ask as many different questions as you need to get the closest fit to your vision. Think of it as if you were buying a house. You would see as many as you wanted to until you find the one that suits your needs and you could see how it's going to work for you and your family. And then finally, the support. With the right support in place, your migration and your aftercare should feel seamless. None of this should be a laborious process for you. So let's talk about these in more detail. The vision. Why do you want to change? Well, it might be the consolidation of software. Maybe like so many others, you probably have a legacy setup that you might have taken over, and then either due to functionality or lack of knowledge around the system, you then start purchasing other products until you realise that you just need actually 1 or 2 pieces of software instead of the 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 that you have and ultimately you're paying for. It may be due to integration or automation. Are you entering data in one and then again in another? Or maybe they don't seamlessly sync. Surely it's a game changer if a new system could automate daily tasks too. You know, maybe scheduling reports to run, sending them to staff members. You know, what happens if you've got a staff member who always runs those reports? You know, if they're absent, do you even know which report they run? You know, maybe you just received the report and you don't know how to access it. Or perhaps it's automating workflows around maybe behaviour incidents, so that if a pupil is given a certain level of behaviour points, the system automatically lets their head of house know, their head of year, you know, puts them into a detention and maybe automatically sends their parents an email. And that leads us nicely on to saving admin time and the burden on your staff. If you can cut down their workload and they're free to get on with other duties, that's always a game changer. I've always said, get the system working for you, not the other way round. Schools also want a cloud system, and they do. Anywhere, anytime access across a variety of devices with reduced risk to disaster recovery. And if nothing else, this last couple of years have shown us those on cloud systems instantly had access in lockdown, whereas some schools were left scrambling to get onto their own system. The plus side of cloud systems are also no more waiting for an update. So those times when you get told, we get this out in the next update, but then it's delayed and then you wait, you know, 6 months for a small change, or you have to vote on the changes that are going to be included next time. Cloud systems tend to be more reactive. Next one, with so many more trusts out there, is a no-brainer. At trust level, you need access and you need to be able to analyse your school's data at the touch of a button. No emailing or calling each school asking for the stats to be sent over. You want unified processes across the board so you can understand the full picture at any given time, especially if Ofsted walk through the door. Schools also want to be paperless. It's less admin time, less of the whole "Miss, I lost my letter," or parents saying they weren't notified of an event, etc. Plus, you can help the environment and save some trees. Cost savings also. Will a new MIS be cheaper? The only way to find this out is to detail what packages you're using across your school and their costs. You'll actually be surprised when you do this. But also to look at it over a 5-year period, because in that first year of moving your MIS, you're going to have increased costs due to training and maybe buying in project management, data cleansing, things like that. So what are your current combined costs? Have a look at a few of these ideas that are on. Often the one surprise we have when we speak to schools is they forget sometimes. Think about it. When was the last time you audited your software? When we have that first conversation with the school and ask what software they're using, we tend to get told their MIS software and maybe a communications package or a payment package, something like that. But as we start to delve deeper and have those detailed conversations, we get the classic phrases of, "Oh yes, I forgot we had that," and "Oh yes, we have that for our assessment," and "Actually, I forgot we've got that for behaviour." So the actual total costs and the potential savings they could make are an eye-opener for quite a few. Now more than ever is the time to be stringent with your school's budget. So what do you need to consider? What are the benefits and the pitfalls of making such a big change? Although cloud and cost are the two main benefits, they're not the be-all and the end-all. Have a think about what your timescale is. Is it desperately needed due to other contracts running out, or do you have time to really investigate? What's your budget and what are your priorities for taking this on? So it's no good jumping with the cheapest if you end up in the same position that you are now and buying extra products again if the functionality doesn't match your priorities. Some schools put off migrating as they think they're too busy for such a big move, but actually, in the long run, it will save them time. What's your internet like at school? Does it need upgrading for this move to be a success? And what are the costs involved for that? Or maybe, do you actually need a new system? Perhaps you just need an audit to tell you what your software is capable of and dedicated consultancy maybe to help train your staff to make it a success. And maybe even some new hardware with that. Do these outweigh the costs of a new system? Not every conversation we have results in a migration. Sometimes schools don't realise the capabilities of the systems they already have. And point number 4 is the most important to me. No MIS is the same, which is exactly why you're changing. But you need to think about what you specifically want as a school and your needs and which software is fit for that purpose. No one software fits every school. You're all so uniquely different that the software needs to fit what you need. You also need to ask what will be migrated and what information will not. Are there any extra charges to migrate this? Things like your historical assessment or exams data, or sometimes linked documents, don't get migrated to a new MIS system. Each are very different. You may want to integrate the new system with third-party products, such as a catering company or communications product, until that contract runs out. And some have been known to charge for this, so be aware of possible extra admin charges. And the last one, some staff can be resistant to change. So it's good to have transparent, open, honest discussions once you've chosen your software. It gives everyone plenty of time to ask questions and see demos, and communication is key. If staff feel their opinions matter and any issues are addressed early on, it really does help the process. It's always good to pinpoint those staff as well that are more resistant to change and have processes in place to support them. Maybe a buddying up system with someone who is a quick learner or extra training for those staff. So the software. With many choices of MIS supplier, it's fine to feel a little daunted, especially if you've been with your legacy system for some time. This is a big move. And these are some, but by all means, not all of them, but just some of the systems out there at the moment. I'd like to share with you a recent survey conducted, I think it was the last part of last year, on the satisfaction levels schools have with their current MIS. Now, it's fair to say the fourth one along of I don't know is doing fantastically well with a 7 out of 10 rating for satisfaction. But what it does do, however, is give you an insight to the current market. There is no one big leader anymore. Schools are definitely changing, and it's not just academies either. Maintained schools are on the move as well. So let's have a think about the project. Any project needs a cycle, and I think migrations fit neatly into these following 6 steps. So start with your project management. Choose your project manager and a team who will support you, and whether that's your current support provider or whether you will go directly to the software company. And then divvy up the roles and responsibility of the move. Who needs to be involved and at what stage, and communicate this with everybody. Next, investigate. Arrange those software demos with all the areas of what you need as a school covered, and make sure all the relevant staff are invited to those, not just the SLT. Bring in a variety of staff so you get a variety of questions and different viewpoints. Take a checklist with you as well. I always say take an Excel spreadsheet and divvy that up into 3 or 4 different tabs. Have your processes that are must-haves. What must this new system do to work for you? Then have another one with your, your would likes. What would you like it to do for you? And then also have a section where you say those things that you can migrate to a new MIS, and it doesn't matter if you have them or you don't. So there's those processes that aren't so critical to you. Once you've got that software, the planning stage comes in. So what's the schedule of implementation? Do you have access to dummy sites first? Who will notify third parties? What information does the software company need for a smooth migration? Each company will have slightly different timelines, but they do all need to suit you. Communicate this too, so everyone is aware of the basic timeline, even if they don't need to know the exact ins and outs, so to speak. Next is the training stage. Demo sites coupled up with training is a fantastic way to learn, but access to your own dummy site to see your data means so much more to you. What's migrated and where it sits, what's not migrated, how does it look, how does it feel? And then have those conversations. How are you finding it? Are some struggling more than most? Do you need to fit in any extra support? Do you need extra training? You'll have a much better go live if any issues are picked up sooner rather than later. And also find out, speak to either your training provider or the software company if they're delivering your training. Some offer specific training to the school, so it's a one-on-one basis, and others offer effectively kind of training academies where it's lots and lots of different schools all on the same training session together. And then the all-important go live. Do you get extra support in those first few days? Do you have a dedicated contact for that first week while you're finding your feet? It's important to feel supported throughout this process. And then lastly, it's always good to evaluate on the process and look at any issues. Talk to the main users and conduct a final assessment. What has gone well and what hasn't? And if there's any issues, speak to your key contacts to get extra support, because this process shouldn't leave you feeling disheartened with that new system. You want it leaving you feeling really positive about the change. And then I've just put there communication in the centre. That is the one key component that makes the entire project cycle work. Communicate as much as you can to as many of your staff as and when you can. So preparing for a migration. Let's have a look at this. These are my tips for a smooth migration. Is your current data of good quality? When was the last time you carried out any housekeeping procedures, if at all? Some schools have never cleansed the data that they have. Migration is the perfect time to clean this up and only take with you what's required. Think of it a bit like a moving house. You always tend to have a clear out as you're packing up, either before or when you get to your new property. It just depends on whether that's easier to do before you move or pack everything, take it with you, and then it's easier to clean up in the new system. Risk management. What happens if the go live date may need to be changed? Will that affect any other processes or contracts or other, third-party links? What happens if key staff in the project are absent? Is there someone to take over to ensure it still runs smoothly? Always plan for it. We don't like surprises. Who's involved and when, and at what stages of the project? Look at each category of staff and choose the key times to involve them. It is a fine balancing act, so everyone feels informed and included, but at the times when they need to be, so they're not overloaded. Staff communication and training is critical to success. They need to know when, how, and why you're changing, and then feel fully confident and supported. You want them actively engaging to make this project a success. And get the right support in place. Have dedicated hand-holding throughout the process and after if you need it. And as I've said, it's a big move, especially after years being with one legacy system. And lastly, find out what checks there are on your old data and the new system to be able to sign it off as a success, and who will do that, and whether it's yourselves or your support company. So what I wish we'd known at the start. This is always the most popular thing, really. I've cut this up into 3 of my top tips of what I wish I'd known. The first one, there is no magic MIS. No MIS will do everything right now that you require as a school, but there are best fits. The best fit for your school, your circumstances, your vision in the future. And that said, the new cloud MISs are more reactive to change due to the nature of being in the cloud. You know, if a small process changes, if the DFE changes anything, cloud products are more reactive to that. Number 2, not only are you changing your MIS, but you also need to change your staff's mindset. It will be a different way of working, which is exactly why you're changing, but you need to embrace a new system with the approach of, how do I do that? Or I need to see this, you know, sort of data, something like that, instead of, well, we used to do it like this, or we used to do it like that, or the report used to be like this. Changing that mindset will help you and your staff embrace the change, and it starts to break down any resistance. Again, it's a bit like moving house. You move house because it will be better for you. Your circumstances have changed. But in your old house, you used to come down the stairs and turn left to go into the kitchen. Well, in your new house, you have to come down the stairs and turn right. You just need time to get used to it. And lastly, done right, it does not need to be stressful or draining. It can be the start of something very exciting and something you may well wish you'd done years ago with the right support. And that's why I'm here. So I'm here to listen. It's so important that you have someone to listen to your specific needs as a school or a MAT. Tell me what's working and what's not working in your school right now. And speak to your support partner if that's not SBS, or just come and speak to us. Don't do this on your own. A good support partner will be able to give you an objective view about any MIS you're thinking of moving to, and they'll be able to support you as little or as much as you want and effectively hold your hand from start to finish. Like me, they probably would have done this many times and have good working relationships with the software companies, enabling them to take the burden from your shoulders whilst you get on the day-to-day activities in school. Plus, we'll usually jump in and ask the questions that you may not have thought to ask. Have a look at what we offer. If you're not going to use the software company's support directly, they usually have a list of accredited partners, just like ourselves. And we've met certain standards to give you good quality support and training, and that makes a huge difference. Ask how they're accredited too. Is it just for support or is it for training also? And look for those extra areas of support, like the ones we offer here. So we've got pre-migration support of housekeeping and data cleansing before you migrate, saving you the time and work of cleaning up your data. We've got project management, so you'll have a dedicated consultant throughout who will not only be there at the start with you, but specifically at go live and after. We offer such things like direct dial to your consultant for the first week, so there's no waiting for a call back. You get through to exactly who you need to speak to when you need, as after, but also through the whole process. So what are your next steps for go live and beyond that? This should give you a timeline to really maximise your new software's potential. So many schools I see migrate, and once they've finished off their training just after go live, they forget those all important next steps. So they're really not utilising the new software. And finally, that post-migration support. What's on offer? What are their SLAs and how do they deliver updates? We release blogs, we do webinars like this and coffee mornings. We have dedicated chats throughout the year with our consultants, and they're pre-bookable to ensure you get a value-added service. We see all of our migrations as the start of a great new partnership, and we like to make sure it's the best that it can be for you and for us. Also, when you find the support that works for you, decide how you'd like that to be delivered. Some schools prefer on-site and some are happy for it to be delivered remotely, or you might just choose a mix of both, maybe on-site for that pre-migration training or the post-migration training possibly. But do your research. When choosing your support, ask them how many migrations they've done, specifically with the MIS that you're going to, that you want to move to. Ask to speak to a couple of the schools that have migrated with them, get their views and advice, and speak to the consultants who will be involved in that process. Get a feel for their knowledge and choose a company that you feel confident with. This is your project and your time for change, and you can do that with whoever support you choose. And of course, if you'd like to have an informal chat, give us a call, email us. We'd be more than happy to help. Alternatively, you can drop past our website to find out more about what we do. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into our services, what we do, what we offer, and hopefully you might have some questions for me. Are there any in the chat, Laura?
There's none in the chat at the moment, George, no.
Okie dokie. If any of you want to unmute yourselves and ask a question or have a chat about where you are in the process, please do. Stunned silence at the moment. In terms of treatment, there's actually some source. Hi, David. Do you have a question?
Hello. Yeah. We're with Sims at the moment, and you SBS support us, have done for a number of years. So kind of just a bit confused with all of the kind of new. We signed up for a new 3-year contract, and we are considering moving. And to be honest, I wasn't that worried about the 3-year contract extension, because if we're going to move MIS, we're already almost at the end of year 1 anyway, and it's quite a lengthy process for us to assess it, which we're going to do over this year. And following your presentation, I may well speak to our assistant head and come and talk to you to get some support with that assessment. But the thing that's kind of confused me recently is I just can't get hold of the people at ESS or Sims to talk about. I keep getting all these nebulous emails about Sims Next Gen is going to do this, it's going to do that. But I can't really see, well, what is it doing for us and when's it going to happen? Is it going to be any good? So I think that's why we're kind of looking at moving away, because it just doesn't feel as though we've got that level of, I get all these emails from them, but they just don't say anything. They're like a really bland kind of sales pitch. It will do this in the future, but we're investing millions. Yeah, but you've been doing it for a year and a bit. And the other slightly confusing thing is I don't know, obviously one of the reasons for thinking about taking your sort of support is we also buy now the like the Sims in Touch and those things. And what I was slightly concerned about is I read somewhere about if those contracts aren't in line, that can also create more problems. So I'm not sure if that's really a question. It's just kind of where we are, really.
So
I suppose a question would be: do you have a view on when the best time to change is? We were thinking not September. But...
No. The thing is, so between the differences between primaries and secondaries will have a longer lead time for their migration. It can be done in several weeks, but it does primaries tend to be about half of that. So for instance, a secondary move to Arbor is about 16 weeks, a primary is 8 weeks. Bromcom, I believe it's about 6 to 8 weeks for each of those, and they can be slightly quicker, slightly longer. Definitely with a primary school, Bromcom Friday, the migration kicks off on a Monday. With Arbor, they tend to do primary schools over a weekend, but they always give you, it's always an upload on a Friday. With primaries, they will go into possibly by the Wednesday of the following week. So it's just a couple of days of taking registers on paper. It's not normally that long, if I'm honest. And with secondaries, they like to do it on a holiday. They won't do it over a weekend because you just need to consider the amount of data your MIS is holding as a secondary. So
yeah,
there's
quite a lot.
lot to move, yeah. When it comes to ESS and next gen, as far as you know as well, is coming and has been coming for quite a long period. What they have done is they've decided to go back to basics, and instead of just releasing a whole new MIS in the cloud, the only way they can do it is by slices. They're calling these slices. So the first slice they released is taking attendance. So you can go onto a web page, take attendance, and it writes back to the sim system. So they're going to be releasing these slices one after the other, after the other, after the other.
So would that write back then to our on-premise databases?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So until all of those slices are released, it's not going to be fully in the cloud. They offer a hosted version, so you don't have to have a on-site sim server, removing that, but it is still the process. It's just you're not hosting it, they are effectively.
All right. Oh, I didn't get that from their emails. I didn't quite appreciate that. So the idea is it would go in slices, and then eventually they'd be ready for the back end or the main databases to move at some stage in the future. Okay.
Yeah. So their version of in the cloud at present is that you can move to hosted, which is just them hosting it, and then you sign in through a web page.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, most of our users are kind of quite low intensity, but we've got some with much greater.
Yeah,
but we do lose a lot of features of it, so there's an enormous amount to move. If
you go to one of the newer cloud-based products, you will see there is certainly a lot more included. Arbor, Bromcom, they include things such as your payment system, your communications, so removing In Touch, your emails, your texts, your parent portals, your parent apps. So the parents are included. You'll get your data messages in that included. So you're cutting down costs. They include other things that schools use: clubs, trips, wraparound care for your breakfast club, your after school clubs, interventions against behaviour. It's depending on the level of package that you purchase from each of the different MISs, depends what's included, but they are becoming more a one-stop shop for all of your MIS needs. And that, of course, then means you don't have the extra costs or the complications of these bolt-ons, all these extra packages.
Yeah, I mean, we've gradually been or trying to go away from some of the bolt-ons. So Behaviour Watch we left 2 or 3 years ago. Show My Homework we're still with, because it does things that it just kind of the other part of the system don't work quite as well as it. So we're tied with that for a moment, but we'd like to sort of offload that one as well. But yeah, there's quite a few when you start going through the systems and
when you actually
work out
start
it and the
to
costs.
when you start to write them down, audit, your software systems, how many have you got, what product, and you'll see a lot of the time, some of the products you have, some of the bolt-ons you have overlap with each other. So you're not only paying once, twice, 3 times for something that does the same thing. The MISs are now inclusive of, and again, this comes back to taking a list with you. What do you need it to do? Some, you can get rid of your, CPOMs. Some include that, some don't, but they have, something else, they wrap around, if that's important to you. It really is a school specific choice on what you use, how you use the system, and what you want it for you, to do for you now, but also in the future.
Yeah, we have CPOMs as well. That's very good as well. So we wouldn't want to ditch that.
No. So, and a lot of these products as well, the new MISs, they will have the third-party links. So if you prefer one MIS, but actually it might not include something such as CPOMs, it will integrate with CPOMs. So it will be a seamless integration. And it will work with those third-party products. They're working with cashless catering now, so the cloud MISs move very quickly. They're very reactive to what schools want.
We have a question from Nicola, George.
Yes.
We are a single academy with no plans to merge, so map functionality isn't important.
Okay.
Do you have preferences on MIS systems for single secondary schools?
That's the one question that everybody asks me, and they say to me, so firstly, don't worry about the MAT. Most MISs, the new MISs, they include a MAT level functionality at extra cost. So if you are multi-academy trust and you want that extra website, you can purchase that for an extra cost, purchase the support for a slightly extra cost as well. If you're not, you just have the single school site. I cannot sit here and say that I have a favourite MIS, that I prefer one over another, because what I prefer would be totally different to what you all prefer as well. It comes back to that house move. The house that I would choose is not the house that you would choose, that would suit your family, where you want to be in 5 years' time. So unfortunately, I can't give you a straight answer for that, but I'll just go back to the fact that you need to take with you what you do want the system to do, what it must do for your school to carry on functioning as it is, what you would like it to do, and then those little areas where you think, actually, it's not as bad as we think if we don't have that included, because some of the good points of the MIS outweigh those other areas. So just get a lot of demos. Go and have, if you want to activate that break clause, you've got a good 12 months. That's a good long time to plan, to get the training in, to know exactly which one you want, and to get those other suppliers in and have those demos. Have 1, have 2, have 3. I'm sure they won't mind. They want to sell you their product. So just get as many as you can. David.
Yeah, we're actually a single academy secondary as well, but our consideration is actually the opposite of the last caller, in that I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that we're not going to be able to remain as a single academy in 10 or 15 years' time. So for one of the considerations for when we change is you know, it has whatever we move to, what's that going to be? And it's our ideal scenario would be to expand as a MAT ourselves, but then the consideration is potentially primaries. If we've moved MIS, then and they join us as a MAT, we're almost forcing them to join the system we have, or we have a total review at a time. But
not necessarily. Not necessarily. Some of the MISs, not all, but again, this is a question to ask in the demos. You can start off with a core level package, depending on your needs, and then you can add to it or move up the level of packages. And one of those being included, if you're a single school at the moment, but you're going to a MAT, once you grow in size, you can then purchase that MAT level site and the MAT level support. Some of the MISs as well, the MAT level site will enable you to be on certain different MISs within the group, and they will just pull the data up.
So
again, that's another,
to consolidate and report.
That's another
that's
question
really interesting.
to ask.
That would be a lot preferable.
Yeah, that's another question to ask. And I guess one of the other big tips I can give you is that when you go into these demos as well, you might say have a first demo, get them to, you know, answer your questions, show you bits and pieces, go away, have some more, get different views, then go back and have another demo and say to them, okay, you said it could do X, Y, and Z. Now show me it can do X, Y, and Z. You know, the last thing you want is that somebody from one of the software companies says, oh, yes, it can do that. But actually, is it going to do it in the way that you'd like or is useful to you? So also get them to show you what you want to see as well.
Does anybody have any other questions for George? Nope.
No, I think we're all done. Well, as I say, I hope you enjoyed this morning. I hope that's given you a bit of insight. Please do give us a call. Laura's going to send out a follow-up email, but do give us a call, stay in touch or get in contact if this is a move you're considering, and we'd be more than happy to help you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good morning. Bye.